Hello and welcome to the world of psychology. Does mindfulness meditation improve intelligence and happiness? In 2012, a pretty interesting study was published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology by Mrazek and colleagues. And the title of this study was The Role of Mind Wandering in Measurements of General Aptitude. So the idea was, when you are trying to solve difficult cognitive tasks, and your mind is wandering, it's not concentrated on the task, so your performance gonna deteriorate. And in fact, Mrazek and colleagues really found strong evidence for this hypothesis by letting participants solve working memory tasks, namely the operation span task, and fluid intelligence tasks, namely the Raven matrices. And during these cognitive tests, participants were frequently asked, well, to what extent was their attention focused either on task or on task unrelated concerns? And participants could answer from 1, well, I'm completely concentrated on the task, to 5, my attention is completely on unrelated concerns. And from these answers, they calculated a mind-wandering score, which was remarkably negatively correlated with the outcomes in these cognitive tests and the results in the SAT, the Scholastic Aptitude Test. So the more mind-wandering, the worse the performance in tests on general aptitude. But of course, this is just a correlation. It doesn't tell anything about the direction of the causality. Maybe mind-wandering is the reason for the bad performance, but on the other hand, bad performance, and this is quite logical as well, and to some extent this is certainly the case, maybe bad performance is the reason for mind-wandering. If I realize that I'm quite bad, I begin to have negative thoughts, I begin to worry. So the logical consequence of this study, of these interesting results, was to develop an intervention which reduces mind-wandering to see if this could boost the results in cognitive tests. Because this would be a direct evidence that mind-wandering is really the reason, or at least one reason, for bad performances in such demanding tasks. And this brings us to the main study of the day, maybe one of the most influential and very often cited studies in 2013, published in the maybe most important journal of psychology, the journal Psychological Science. And the title of the study is Mindfulness Training Improves Working Memory Capacity and GRE Performance while Reducing Mind Wandering. So obviously the intervention Mrazek and colleagues chose was the mindfulness meditation, which is quite rich in tradition. And in their study, 48 students were divided into 2 groups. One group was trained on mindfulness meditation, and the control group, which was an active control group, which is really important because maybe one group is just outperforming the other because the participants are more motivated due to the fact they are getting much more attention and they are much more cared of. So from a research methodological point of view, this is really important. And both groups, the mindfulness meditation group and the other group, the control group, was a nutrition group. They were informed about fundamental issues of nutritional science. Both groups attended 4 45-minute lasting lessons a week, and the whole intervention lasted just 2 weeks. During the mindfulness meditation sessions, the participants exercised for 10 to 20 minutes. The rest of the time they were informed about concepts of mindfulness meditation, and they were also asked to practice and to integrate mindfulness into their daily activities by completing 10 minutes of daily meditation outside of class. So during the lessons, 10 to 20 minutes, and outside of class, 10 minutes every day. This is really not very much. But what was this training, this mindfulness training about? Well, participants had to focus on sensory experiences like the taste of a fruit, the sounds of an audio recording, or just to focus on their breathing. So all it takes is just to let go for a moment and just feeling the air coming in through your nostrils, directing your attention to the touch of the air as it comes in, and then just breathe out and let it go. Just being with your breathing for a few moments. Some other key learnings of the mindfulness meditation training were, of course, sitting in an upright position, legs crossed, gaze lowered, learning to distinguish between naturally emerging thoughts and elaborated thinking, reframing, and I think this is quite important, reframing of worries and anxieties as mental projections, allowing the mind to rest in a natural way rather than trying to suppress emerging thoughts. And when you realize, well, my mind is wandering, participants were taught you can use your breath as an anchor for attention. So after the 2 weeks of training, both groups, the mindfulness meditation and the nutrition group, were retested, and their performance in a working memory task, the so-called operation span task, and their performance in the verbal GRE, the graduate record examination, which was a little bit modified, so it could be best described as a reading comprehension test. And in both tests, even though the training was really not very long, the mindfulness meditation group significantly outperformed the nutrition group. And the meditation group reported significantly less mind wandering. So it seems like the mindfulness meditation training led to less mind wandering, which in turn led to improvements in these, by the way, really important cognitive tests, because they are really good predictors for other achievements, which in turn led to improvements in these cognitive tasks. If these results should be replicated, at best also from other research teams, this would be a really interesting progress, because from the theoretical point of view, this would prove mind wandering really is a reason for deteriorated performances in cognitive tests. And of course, from a practical point of view, this would have an impact on education as well. Maybe in some years there's gonna be mindfulness meditation at schools, but also at universities or at the workplace. By reducing mind wandering, mindfulness meditation might boost your scores on demanding cognitive tests, but maybe there are also some collateral benefits. At least this is suggested by a study from Killingsworth and Gilbert, published in Science 2010, named "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind." In this study, 2,250 adult subjects from many countries of the world, but most of them, about 74%, residing in the US, used an iPhone app, which was developed by the study authors, to track their happiness. So from time to time, their iPhone gave a signal and participants were asked some questions like, how are you feeling right now? What are you doing right now? And whether the mind had just wandered. And in almost 50% of the time, participants reported mind wandering. So almost 50% of the time, our mind is not concentrated on what we are doing right now. Our mind is not in the here and now. Mind wandering occurred especially during self-care and grooming. In 65% of the times people were brushing their teeth or taking a shower, their mind had wandered away. Mind wandering occurred during work, 50% of the time. When people exercised, during sports, mind wandering occurred about 40% of the time. And even during sex, people were 10% of the time absent-minded. But the really exciting result of this study was that during mind wandering, people on average were significantly less happy. And this was even the case during unpleasant activities. This is really surprising because even if we are doing something we dislike, we don't use mind wandering to dream ourselves to a better place. No, even when we are doing something we dislike, like being in a traffic jam, mind wandering makes us, on average, this is not always the case, but on average it makes us feel unhappy. And the reason probably is, when we mind wander, we are often focused on the bad stuff. We are focused on worries, fears, and regrets. So we think of things like, what if I fail in this project? Will I lose my job? Or why did I say this to my friend? Shit, what is he going to think of me? This was so stupid. Or did I take my pills yesterday? And who are the two girls lying in my bed? Whoa! And what about the sumo ringer and the squirrel lying next to them? So, at least some of these thoughts have the potential to make us unhappy. And in fact, Killingsworth and Gilbert could show that it's the mind wandering that occurs before the bad mood, and it's not the bad mood that occurs before the mind wandering. So it really seems, as the title of the study says, a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. But, and now we turn to our last study, published by Smallwood and Andrews Hanna, and called Not All Minds That Wander Are Lost. The importance of a balanced perspective on the mind-wandering state. But we shouldn't paint a too dark picture of mind-wandering. Of course, mind-wandering may deteriorate performance in demanding cognitive tasks. And of course, mind-wandering might make us unhappy, might play a role in respect to depressive disorders. In clinical psychology, we speak of rumination. But there is no doubt that there are also positive aspects of mind wandering, because it's important for creative thinking, for creative problem solving. And a lot of inventions of mankind have been discovered by great wandering minds. And think of it, almost 50% of the time we are absent-minded. So mind-wandering, daydreaming is definitely a evolutionary winner. And probably because it helps us to come up with really good solutions, even without having to be aware of it. So there is a lot of subconscious processing taking place. By the way, neuroscientists suppose that it's the so-called default mode network that might play a really important role in this game. Mind wandering also seems to be important for memory consolidation, especially for memories related to ourselves. And this is not surprising because during mind wandering, a lot of replay is taking place, and the more often you think something, the deeper memory traces can become. So that's it for today. Hope to see you next time, and don't forget to live the moment.